Just need one shoe that I could take to the crag no matter what kind of rock it is, no matter what style of climbing you're doing. I know it's going to perform at a pretty high level, at a good price too, super comfortable. That's why we made the Quantic. The Quantic is replacing the Arpia in our line. Some people may remember the Arpia was a shoe that we launched specifically with sort of gym climbing in mind. I think a lot of people realized that it was a decent outdoor climbing shoe as well, and people use it for 50-50. But we definitely thought we can improve on a shoe that could take that same space, equally good at climbing outdoors and indoors. And also, just like we do with all of our shoes, really make sure that comfort is a focus. So the Quantic is brand new. We pegged this as a shoe that's completely appropriate climbing indoors and outdoors, as I said. And it's actually a shoe that's good at almost every discipline of climbing. You can do this, bouldering, sport climbing, trad climbing, even big wall climbing. This is a shoe that can do every style of climbing at moderate to advanced levels. The idea here is all around performance and comfort. So first thing people are going to notice right away is it's super lightweight, which means really easy to break in and really comfortable immediately right out of the box, which is a huge thing because people, when they put on a climbing shoe these days, they don't want it to necessarily be super tight, but they definitely want it to perform, right? So we struck a perfect balance with this shoe. So a couple of highlights that help with the performance. Obviously we incorporated the PAF heel, again, pressure absorbing fit to alleviate a bunch of discomfort and pressure off the Achilles tendon while still allowing for a good amount of forward pressure towards the front of the shoe, which is what you need for a performance fit to make sure that there's a lot of power being driven to the big toes. The micro suede is really nice and thin, also durable. It's a little bit thinner than the micro suede that we use in some of our other shoes, and that's just for instant comfort. We're using a really nice open mesh breathable panel over the instep. Can accommodate a lot of different volumes of instep, whether you're low volume or high volume. We wanted it to be performance, but also provide a good amount of underfoot support as climbers are kind of developing their foot strength and their footwork. So we did use a full length outsole on this, and it is the Vibram XS Edge rubber, which is the stiffer of the two Vibram rubbers. So it's going to be a little bit more durable, a little bit more supportive underfoot, which is really beneficial, especially for newer climbers. But to make sure that it is going to be a performance shoe when you need it, especially to grab at features when you're on steep terrain, you'll notice that even though it is a full length outsole, it tapers and gets more narrow as you get to the heel. So again, underneath the arch where you're going to kind of be bending and flexing, when you're actually on steep terrain, you are going to be able to do that, but you are going to get really good under arch support when you're standing on small holds and whatnot. So we pair that with a full length midsole too. So again, you're kind of thinking maybe this thing's really stiff, really hard to kind of flex, but it's not. Again, the midsole is pretty thin, even though it's full length. By tapering that outsole, it gives some sensitivity and the ability to actually flex the shoe. It's not like a really stiff brick underneath your foot. We are incorporating our soft touch heel. As you guys can see, that black patch inside here, it's just a softer micro suede compared to the rest of the shoe. So again, inside, when your foot's inside of the shoe, especially if you're just standing on a really small hold for a long time, you're going to have a really good, comfortable, no hot spots in the back of the heel of the shoe. Another really cool technology is that the entire rand that you're seeing here, the toe patch, the rand that wraps all the way, that integrates into the PAF heel, is all one piece. It's a really cool technology that kind of cradles the entire foot underneath from front to back in one continuous piece. A really good performing shoe at a realistic price that's not going to break the bank, and it can do every style of climbing well. We obviously make it in a men's version and a women's version. The only difference between the men's version and the women's version in our shoes is a reduction in volume in the heel. So the heel doesn't go as deep into the upper of the shoe like the normal version does, which gives the entire shoe a sensation of a lower volume fit across the entire instep just by reducing the heel volume. But otherwise, feature sets are the exact same as the men's version of the Quantic. So as you get into more of our specialized performance shoes, they're a little bit more pointed at doing one specific style of climbing better than another. That's why they're specialized kind of shoes, whereas this is great at doing everything kind of all around. Again, it might not perform at that same level if one of our specialized performance shoes is like, the best at toe hooking or the best at heel hooking. Maybe this won't do those things quite as well as specialized performance, but it's definitely going to do it much better than our beginner shoes and some of that sort of stuff. The other really key thing too is if you're only getting specialized shoes, you kind of have to have multiple shoes, right? Because they're each good at doing something something specific, they're also the most expensive shoes that we have in the line too as well. So we wanted to offer someone, even again, you know, an advanced climber that's like, I love to go bouldering, I love to go sport climbing, I love to go trad climbing. I just need one shoe that I could take to the crag no matter what kind of rock it is, no matter what style of climbing you're doing. A lot of climbers, especially new climbers, and even more and more people that have been climbing for a long time, they're just like, I don't really want a super uncomfortable shoe, but I do want it to be able to do everything. That's where the Quantic comes in. And again, it's about $30 cheaper MSRP than a Vapor V as well. So if you're looking to save a little bit of money, have a shoe that's super comfortable, can pretty much do everything that the Vapor V does, maybe not quite as high of a level, but pretty similar. Yeah, that's where you're going to want to go, Quantic versus Vapor. And most people that if they're typically just renting shoes, they don't own their own pair, and they're not really sure if they're like going to be psyched on the sport, they're going to go right towards like a Reflex V or an Origin or a Helix that are very comfortable, very low price compared to the rest of our shoes, like $100. But the performance in those compared to this is very different. You know, what we would say a all-around performance shoe like an Origin, Reflex V, Helix, they don't have a ton of technology, but it's super comfortable and it's really inexpensive, right? It's easy to get into. The Quantic is still going to be appealing for that type of customer that is, one, willing to spend a little bit more money for more technology, a better performing shoe that's equally as comfortable, and more likely the climber that's super psyched that after they have a pair of demo shoes on, they spend a couple of hours in the gym, they're like, I'm hooked. I know I want to do this all the time, but you're not sure. You're like, I don't know what kind of climbing I want to specialize in, right? Should I get this shoe that's good at bouldering or good at sport climbing? They still know that they need one shoe to do it all, but they know right away that they want something a little bit more high performance than an intro shoe. This is a great option for that type of climber. Obviously, compared to our beginner shoes, it's pretty symmetrical, so it's not very, you know, asymmetrical, very curved, but this does have some downturn, right? So you are going to be able to grab, and it will perform a little bit better on steeper terrain, whereas the shoes I mentioned before, like an Origin, a Reflex, a Helix, they have no downturn at all. So this is definitely going to perform a little bit better, even for a beginner climber that's going to a newer modern gym that doesn't have much vertical or slabby terrain, right? Everything's pretty steep, overhanging for the most part, and that's what people are psyched on mostly these days. And that's, again, where even a beginner climber is going to benefit more from this shoe, more than the other beginner shoes in our line. Typically, if you're working with a really good resoler, if the most dangerous thing with people if they're going to resole their shoes is to get it done before you actually see a hole in the shoe. Because if that's the case and you just see a certain part, typically the inside of the big toe, getting critically thin, you want to get it resoled, because at that point all they'd need to do is shave that section off and just patch that one thing. Whereas if you let it wear all the way through, you're correct, you're going to need to replace the entire thing. But obviously any of the resolers that we have on our website as a recommended resoler for SCARPA products is going to be completely capable of resoling this back to its original shape and its original form, and it's not going to lose its last and climbing characteristics. So good question, but any resoler that we're going to certify as a SCARPA resoler is going to fully be able to repair this for sure.